Hi everyone, and welcome to the next episode of the HeelanHub podcast, the show for small business owners. I'm Dan Heelan. On today's show, I want to talk to you about accounting software, particularly whether you actually need it. And that's a big thing, I think, with new owners or whether you're actually in business for a few years and you just heard all this hype. Maybe you're in a Google sheet, you're in an Excel spreadsheet, and you're thinking, why do I need to go to accounting software? When's the time where it actually makes sense to me? Those kind of questions. And that's what we're going to cover in this podcast. So I think one of the main issues with actually looking at accounting software is this thing that you see all these adverts and people talking about it, and obviously accountants love it, and I'm going to talk to you about some of our favourites for sure, is that it's going to cost you money. I mean, at the moment, something like a Xero license on what I call the decent edition, the one that most people use, is about 44 quid including VAT, or it will be from September if you don't have a deal, which we'll talk about. But so there's a fair investment. But on top of that, I think for a lot of people, the actual bigger investment is the time investment to learn to use it. And that's often overlooked by people. It's like, oh, it's only X amount of, Costas or Starbucks if you sort of wrap it up into what you spend money elsewhere. Where else in your business could you find that kind of investment? But it's the time cost to learn it and that fear. And I want to talk a bit about that as well. So, but for me, there are a lot of benefits to being in the software. So I'm going to tell you about the kind of break points and when it makes more sense. And also, I think there's some clear examples of when it actually, the choice is out of your hands. You've got to do it. So we're absolutely going to be talking about where you're going to have to. But first, I think it's just worth recapping on what we mean when I talk about accounting software, because there's a lot of software applications out there these days, isn't there? You go everywhere, there's an app for this, there's an app for that. And quite a few of the banks will talk about the fact that they've got accounting apps and it'll let you report for your VAT or do some of these other things, but they're not what I'm talking about. So what I'm talking about here is things like Xero or QuickBooks. And the reason is they do two main things. You've got the data entry in your categorization, which is what nearly all the apps will do. So and that's what your spreadsheet does. If you think about it, if you keep your record at the moment on spreadsheets, you're going in, you type in date, where it came from, how much it was, that kind of stuff. And then that's it. And there's a benefit to that for sure. And if you're self-employed, often that's all you need, because all you're looking for is an outcome for your tax return. 2 boxes really for a lot of people. What was my taxable income? What was my taxable expenses? That's it. So a spreadsheet or some simple form of app to track that will work. But when we're talking about accounting software as accountants, we're not talking about that. We're talking about something that's got the other side of it, which is the reporting aspect. And that reporting aspect is really important because apart from the fact it's going to tell you several really, really important things for your own use, like who owes you money, who you owe money to, and the state of your business, and you can dig into figures. But that's great. And I think there's really important reasons to do that. But more importantly, it's kind of a double check that this is all working for you, because in the accounting world, it's known as double entry. And, 14-year-old jokes aside, that's the accounting concept we're dealing with. So for everything you list in one side in that list we're talking about, I spent money on £4.50 in Starbucks talking to a client, there'll be another side of it. Now, quite often that other side of it would be £4.50 coming out of the bank. And those two are what's known as reconciled. So it makes sure that actually there's a real kind of check of what's happening. So if you've said you've spent money, where did you spend it from? How did it come into the business? Is it money you've put in? All these things are really important. And if you're a limited company, they are crucial. So limited companies particularly is one of those areas where I think if you're a limited company, you should not be without this type of software. Now, so that's what we mean by accounting software as a true accounting piece of software. So I think if you're out there looking and you're like, is this a true accounting piece of software or not? Look for things like, does it produce some reports known as a balance sheet and a profit and loss? If the two are there, then but look for the two, because many of them will do a profit and loss, which is just really totals from the spreadsheet. And the balance sheet's the other side of that equation. And most of these like half apps just won't do that for you. So then let's start off with the ones where you have to. So thinking about some cases where you have to. VAT. So there's something known as Making Tax Digital, and there's 2 versions of Making Tax Digital, just to keep it easy to understand. There's Making Tax Digital for VAT that's been around for many years. Now, when you're VAT registered, you have to transmit usually quarterly, although there is options for annual, but I would never do that for various reasons we won't go into in this podcast. But generally, most people will do quarterly VAT returns. You can also choose monthly, which if you're in a repayment situation and your records are good, quite often clients do. So, for example, we work with quite a few property developers that may have monthly VAT returns because they get a VAT rebate every sort of month. Because if you imagine they're building property, and I don't want to get too deep in property VAT, but if you're in the right situation, developing the right type of property, VAT could be for you. And I want to really stress in the right situation, because if you're just, doing up a house, this isn't for you. Then quite often you're not selling the property. There's no sales. You've not got any VAT to kind of account for that you've been paid. So it's only VAT that you're incurring that you can reclaim. And in these situations, being on monthly returns makes sense. Anyway, side issue. But let's just say for most normal people, you're doing quarterly VAT returns. That needs to be done inside of software, submitted digitally. Now, previously, the revenue used to just have a free tool. You'd log onto the online software, submit like 7 boxes, and that would be done, or 9 boxes, whatever the case would be, and you'd be done. Now, they scrapped that tool quite a few years ago, and you have to report in software. Now, the weird thing is that you don't need true accounting software to do this. There's something known as bridging software, which will literally let you select cells on your Excel or your Google Sheet and transmit that data. So you don't need it, but for lots of other reasons, I think that if you're going to have to be in the VAT world and submit these returns, you might as well be in proper software for it. But there is a caveat there. So whilst I'm saying you need to be in software for VAT, you don't need to be in true accounting software. You just need to have something that will transmit those VAT returns. But if you're in that world, you will need to have software, and that isn't free, basically, to submit those returns. And as I said, not all softwares are made equally is probably the easiest way to think about that. And then we said there was 2 types of making tax digital. The other one is coming in April 2026. So as we're recording this podcast in 2025, this is accurate at this moment. The reason I say it's accurate at this moment is that making tax digital for income tax has been renamed and delayed for nearly a decade. So, but I've been told, I've heard it from the HMRC director's mouth that this is coming, and we've done a lot of content, as you know, if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, about this. But that's coming for the self-employed, where they've got income from their self-employment of over 50,000 from April 26, and then that 50,000 drops to 30,000, then to 20,000 in the coming years. So the short answer is, if you're doing any sort of reasonable turnover, sales, revenue, whatever you want to call it, in your self-employed business, you're going to need to be able to transmit quarterly returns to the HMRC, the revenue, as we would call it, at least 4 times a year. And then there's a final 5th kind of tax return, like a finalization piece that also needs to be done by software, and they're scrapping their free software tool. So you're going to need to be in it. Well, I've done other podcasts on that, so I'm not going to go down too details on that road. But if you're in that world where you're doing over £50,000, or really, I think you should think about, if I'm doing over £20,000 in my side hustle, I'm going to need to be in software. Let's do it. And again, that's the same problem. Not all softwares are made equally. There is definitely some bridging type software being developed where you could click your spreadsheet and transmit. But what they don't appear at the time of recording this podcast to be able to do is do that finalization, whatever you want to call it, basically the tax return replacement part, because they only transmit, they don't receive. And I think you need to be able to receive to do it, is my current understanding. So again, yes, there are kind of these weird bridging pieces that can get around this. But if you're in those 2 scenarios where you've got making tax digital, either for VAT or income tax to think about, then I think that's you should just be thinking, let's get some proper accounting software. And if you are thinking of which one, I could do about 1 million videos and podcasts on which one. But right now, as we're recording, the one I would point you to is Xero. And if you want to get your journey started on that for super, super cheap, we're currently running a promotion with us at HeelanAssociates.co.uk/Xero. Make sure to use lowercase for all of that, and you'll get a ridiculous discount. I think at the time of recording it, it's 95% off for 6 months. So go do that. Obviously helps the show, and it also helps you. So go do that. So in those 2 scenarios, you're going to be in a place where you need some sort of accounting software. But let me tell you a bit more of a story about an owner that I'm sure you can relate to. Now, we could make up different names. Let's call him Bruce. It could be a lady, could be a man, but we're going to call this guy Bruce. And I don't know, maybe he's got a cool name like Bruce Powers. That would make a cool name. Anyway, Bruce Powers. Imagine Bruce, he's there, he's running his business every day, he's trying to do various different hats and thinking through the business and thinking, well, look, I've got to worry about, are we delivering the service? What's happening with this? What's happening with that? All day, every day. So he's not really thinking, and this I'm sure you can relate to, is quite often we find owners that we work with will do all their accounting stuff at the weekend or in an evening, if they can really be bothered, in all honesty. And one of our biggest challenges as accountants is getting stuff from people. But you imagine you're Bruce, you've had a busy day, so you're doing all that. You get to Sunday night and you think, do you know what? I need to do some invoicing here. I've done a lot of work. I haven't invoiced anything yet. So you boot up your Word document, because you're not in any accounting software at the moment that you've been using for 5 years. You save a new copy. You hopefully get the invoice number right. You sort of overtype all the details. You re-input the customer's data and their address and everything else, and then you attach that to some iffy Hotmail address or whatever and send it. Hopefully that's not you. Hopefully it's not you. Please, Gmails and Hotmail addresses, I just don't think these days are required. We want proper domain names, but that's a side thing. But so you've done that. And then on top of that, you've noticed, if you are working with your accountant, Bruce definitely is here, his accountant wants stuff. And he's thinking, well, oh yeah, I've got to pop by their office, because he uses a local accountant. I've got to pop by their office and give them a bag of receipts. And I need to email them and compile all of these invoices I've just written and make sure they've got a copy of those. Maybe I'm even going to print them on my printer, and I'm going to take those in as well. And then on top of that, he then looks while he's worrying about all this, and he looks at the bank and thinks, I've got no money. I've got no money here. So who owes me money? Oh, hold on. I've got a pile in my in tray here. And he picks up his papers and he shuffles through them and he's looking for who owes him money because he's written and stamped it. I don't know. People do this. He's written on each one when he's been paid because he's seen it in the bank, or maybe he's actually looking on his banking app and thinking, oh, okay, who's paid me? Oh, yeah. So all that is wasting time trying to figure that out. We're not entirely sure whether that's right. And then on top of that, he's actually wondering, do you know what? I'm quite depressed by all this now. Have I actually made any money? Is this thing actually worth it? And then he's got to look at 3 different logins because he's got, maybe actually he's got some other spreadsheet that he's logging what sales he's done on and things like that. So he's like logging into his Microsoft account, having a look at that. Then he's logging into his bank to have a look at what's happening there. And maybe there's some other thing that's keeping some expenses. There's another sheet or something. Looking at all these different areas to try and find out how they've been done. Now, do you really want to be doing that in an evening or a weekend? And the answer clearly is no. And this is where the accounting software helps because they sorts out all these things. So using the Xero example, you have got invoicing. So there's an invoicing feature on there. You can literally do it. And the power of it, I think, and we've done other podcasts on this, is you could do it before you leave the customer or the client's house. So if say you're in the trade, and this is so common for tradesmen to do their invoicing like late on a Sunday night, is do it in the car. When you're going to have your tea and you've done your job and you're having a 5-minute break, prep the invoice. You can draft it if you like when you're on your lunch break, as you know the job's finishing, and then send it when you get in the car at the end of the day. But you can do it. There's templates, email straight from there. Now, we said about collaborating with the accountant. Well, they seal that invoicing. It's exactly the same. There's no file thing where one of you's got one version of the software and the other one's got a different version. You've got live data because it's stored up in the cloud. So you've got all that and you've got your invoicing. So that's done. So your client's got it instantly. You know what's going on. You can also mark it off in the software then when it's paid. Now, the way you do that is normally you have your bank connected to the software. So all your transactions come in every day and you categorize them there. So rather than inputting all your expenses on a spreadsheet, you can categorize them in the bank there and then, and you can match the payments, and their sort of AI and the learning will look at the invoice and say, somebody, Mr. Smith, has paid you this invoice for £200, has paid a payment, for £200, and you got an invoice for £200. Is this the one? And there's a green that sort of goes green and you press OK and it pays it off. So then if Bruce wants to go see where he is with his clients and who owes him money, you can just bring a report up. He goes to reports. It's called the Accounts Receivable Summary in Xero, and you have a look at it and it shows you the balances of what customers owes you what money. It's also a big area that if you have mucked this process up and you've done something wrong, you will see there'll be like negative numbers, or you think, no, they've definitely paid that. And it's a sort of a flag to go check out what might have gone wrong. But anyway, if you do it properly, you can have instant reporting around who owes you what money when, and you can send statements direct from it. So you've got all that as well. And then on top of that, as I said, the actual data entry in the workflow is going to save you a lot of time. So if you are doing this late on a Sunday night, all you're doing is going through your bank and categorizing it. You can set rules up so that it recognizes certain transactions. Like say you get charged £8 of bank fees every month. You can set the rule up to say, if you see this, do this with it. And you just click an OK button each time. But the beauty is, again, I would encourage owners all the time not to wait till Sunday evening to do this. Just do it throughout your day. 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there. If you're a mobile first user, I always think it's better to use a laptop or something like a giant iPad to kind of do your bookkeeping software if you want to get the most out of it, in all honesty. But the mobile experience is okay. There is a mobile app where you can reconcile your bank with Xero, for example, or QuickBooks, whichever one you want to use. And I use those two mainly because they're the ones that we use with our clients. There are other ones available, but these are the two for me, the two leaders. And you can do that, in and out throughout the day, just small transactions at a time, or 15 minutes a day, with your morning coffee. I know it's probably not on the top of your priority list to do, but honestly, if you do it small and often, it really is a good thing to be able to do. So the accountant software will solve a lot of those problems and therefore save you the time. So that's the biggest thing for me is, as a business owner, the one resource you don't have any more of is time. Why would you want to spend more time mind-numbingly entering data into a spreadsheet and trying to figure out where these things are when the software can do a lot of the heavy lifting for you? So that's really, really important. So for use cases, for me, any business I think would benefit, but massively if you're a limited company. Now, don't get me wrong, there are the other way around. If you're do a small couple of invoices a year on a side hustle for a bit of consultancy and your only expenses are a couple of coffees and some bits and pieces, then you're probably going to be completely fine in a spreadsheet for the foreseeable future. But if you've got any idea that you want to scale your business and you're getting towards like VAT or these turnover levels that are going to bring you into making tax digital, or you just want to keep on top of your invoice and these kind of things, you absolutely should be, I think, spending money on accounting software. And there are different levels. I spoke about £44 including VAT for what's known as like a grow license at full price from someone like like Xero. There's also, they have smaller levels. So they have like a simple one, which is going to be good for the Making Tax digital solution. I think that starts about £7 plus VAT at the moment without any discount. And then there's a smaller version of the Grow. I think it's about 16 to 19 quid maybe. I'm guessing I don't have many clients on that one, but you can actually start off there. It just caps the amount of invoices you can spend. But again, if you only send in a few invoices a month and you only have a few bills a month, that's actually quite a good one as well. So there's lots of different ways you can get into this sort of thing, and most of them will do free trials if you really want to play around and test a few. But done right, it'll absolutely save you time. And if you're a limited company, and this is really important, if you're a limited company, it really does matter about where every single penny goes. That double entry we talk about, is really, really important on limited companies, because every penny that you take out and every penny that you put in matters. The time of when you take it matters. The dividends you might have heard of that are being declared by your accountant matters. So all the time it matters. And what the software allows you to do is literally click a button and you can see the timing of everything. Every transaction in granular detail is built up in there. And if you're sad enough to have an HMRC investigation, they will want to see that print, because there are very specific rules about how much money you can take from your company at certain times and the balances of those. And if you've got that wrong, then, or you can't prove you were right all along, then you can find yourself in problems. So it really, really is important with a limited company. So if you are thinking, look, I haven't started a limited company, but I'm thinking of doing it, I would from day one go and get yourself some software. And as I say, one of choice right now, HeelanAssociates.co.uk/Xero. So there we go. That's my thoughts at the moment on whether you need it. Short and sweet, but if you sound like you are Bruce and you can see some of that in yourself, then absolutely go and play with these things. And of course, there are online courses, accountants, other people that will teach you how to use these things if you need some support. And on top of that, there's obviously free videos on YouTube with tutorials and the like. And but if you're tech enabled, a lot of these things, the basics you'll be able to do. It tends to be, we find there are certain scenarios where it just suddenly becomes trickier. You know, when you're VAT registered, it's always going to be harder work, because you've got to work out whether you should be claiming VAT on that receipt that you're putting in or not. But there's other ones where, like, oddly, online businesses that sell on eBay, Amazon, Shopify, all these things, they actually could be quite complicated to bookkeep without automation. And even if you've got the automation, trying to prove the automation's working can be difficult. And often people miss that it all sounds very easy online, but that is definitely some of the use cases where it's most difficult. Or if you've got members of the team, so you've got staff, that can be. So if you get into these areas, that's when you start thinking about, does this need outsourcing? I mean, outsourcing from an efficiency point is good, but obviously when you start your business, it's important to kind of try and save as much money as you can. But it becomes a point where you're looking at think, this is not worth my time. It's better to outsource it. But in those early days, you might want to play around with it. And what I always like about the fact that you've tried to play around with it is you appreciate how difficult it can be to get it right, and you got some appreciation in your head. So, but either way, lots of options there. So hopefully you found value in today's show. If you have, please do share it with anybody you think needs to know this information. And if you could subscribe via your favorite app, that'd be great. I know most of you come through Spotify, but as we mentioned previous episodes, we're also throwing these up on YouTube at the minute. So if you do want to interact with us, you can go into the comments there and we read them all. So please do go and do that. Sometimes there's a bit of a delay at the moment of when this hits. If you're listening to this as it's released, you might see the actual show itself might take a little bit of time to hit, but we're getting better at that. So that's out there. And that's, if you just search the HeelanHub, you'll find it. Obviously, our main channel at Heelan Associates is on YouTube for tons of extra guides, how-tos, news, all that kind of stuff. And if you are interested in business sort of insight, tax tips, all that kind of stuff, you can also connect with us across all of the social media channels, or you can sign up to our newsletter, which is the HeelanHub Herald, as it's called. If you go to our website at HeelanAssociates.co.uk and scroll around on the front page for literally 2 seconds, a pop-up will pop up. You can stick your details in there and you'll be signed up. If any of that fails, just email us, info@HeelanAssociates.co.uk, and my team will add you. That's it. Have a profitable and tax efficient week, and I'll see you in the next one.